Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of the Night Owl tonight, being this solemn day of 9/11, 2014. I cannot believe it's already 13 years since that tragic day. Um, no matter what you believe, how or whom did it, it was a tragic day. Certainly a wake-up call for many of us. Certainly a surprise, especially if you live in America, where you kind of have a tendency to believe that you're kind of safe from the threats from outside. And but whatever you believe on, what we're going to do this first part is just to kind of, I'm just going to ask people, just to express, remember where they were when they first got the news and or first when the plane first hit into that first tower. Um, It's a day that I will never forget. Just like many other days in history, I guess the more next recent one would be the assassination of JFK, which was before I was even born, or Pearl Harbor, and I'm sure people who have lived through those times remember distinctively where they were, what they were feeling, and stuff like that. So I'm going to I don't have any viewers right now, but going to send an invite out. Um, Sorry, give me a moment. Here we go. Um, I remember distinctively where I was that day. At the time, I was, well, not to get too specific with my job, but I was working in a civil service job and was there, God, it must have been about an hour or so already. I was in work already, went in work around 7 o'clock. And then I believe the first plane hit around 8:20, 8:25, I believe it was, if memory serves me right. And people were saying, come watch the news, and so there was a TV in the break room, and we all gathered around the table, and not the table, the TV. And I remember seeing one of the twin towers, smoke coming from billowing from the tower. It was starting. It looked like a chimney, you know. And I guess at first, and like many other people, probably thought that it was just some freak accident, some small plane that might have hit into the tower. Um, we've had things like that happen before. With there was many years before that, a small plane hit in the Empire State Building. Um, it happens if there's bad weather, they can't see. But this day it was a clear day, beautiful day as ever. Hey, Reuben. And so people pretty much probably thought that it was just an accident. And then we found out that it was a large plane. And then not too long after, I guess it was about an hour later, um, another plane hits the other tower. And I think it was at that moment that we realized that we were under attack. And then you had, the news coming in hitting the Pentagon, another plane hitting the Pentagon, and another one going down in Pennsylvania. And so I remember that, yeah, pretty clearly. And I remember that we went out on the field. I lived in New York at the time. Um, I was in Brooklyn, and where I was at was near the water, and you can see across the water the skyline of Manhattan. And it was very surreal that even I was out in the field, had started work, and then to see the smoke rise and to have the ashes actually coming across the waters to the shores of Brooklyn, about 15 miles away, and that was creepy to say the least. And so that's where I was on that day. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget my head being in kind of a fog that day, and I was dealing with people all day, and everybody just talking about it. You hear the sirens all over the place, that's for sure, and glued to TV, that day, and the days after that. So yeah, I remember that very, very clearly. Uh, Ruben, oh, Joseph was here, but he just left. I don't know what happened. Okay. Ruben, hey, oh, hey, Joseph, welcome back. Oh, I got noise.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Um, oh, I didn't see it. I didn't see the avatar. So, so anyway, Joseph, yeah, I was just sharing my where I was that day. Um, and Ruben, I know you mentioned because your age. I don't remember what your age was, or that back then. You cared to Ruben's in text for those who are watching. Okay, maybe he doesn't want to put his age, but I guess he was too young to remember much then, or very little. Okay, you don't give his age. All right. So, Joe, sure you remember where you were that day, 9/11?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was at work. And at the time, I actually worked up front, so I was the first person you'd see walking into the building. And I had the luxury of being the only person with the TV, because it was up in the lobby, right?
Hmm.
So everybody came up to the lobby to watch it.
Now, how old were you then?
Let's see here. I was born in 81.
Okay, so you were 20 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gosh. Can't believe I was that young. Huh?
Yeah, I know that 13 years, it's kind of flew by. I can't believe it's 13 years already.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you were thinking or you feeling or?
I think I was pretty numb, actually. I didn't give it too much thought. Of course, I went home. I was big into like watching the news. I always have been. So when I went home, I continued pretty much all night to just watch the news, and I didn't draw any conclusions or anything like that.
Okay.
I think it was more of it wasn't a scared feeling, right? It was more of a how could we let this happen feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I had a scared feeling.
Hey Eric, how you doing?
I'm exhausted, but I'm glad that you're doing a hangout.
Yeah.
Who's this Joseph character with David Bowie avatar?
It's
Sheik, we've met before.
Oh no, I know who you are now. How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents were on a plane to Israel when it happened, and they flew out of Kennedy.
So you had a
It-
reason to be scared.
well, it was just an awful day. I mean, it was such
Yeah.
a. I was watching ABC News just before leaving work, and I got into my. I had a car back then, and I got into my car and I started going to work, and they said there was a second plane. I was like, wait a second, what the fuck just happened? And I'm sitting at a light, and I remember a woman sitting in the car next to me, and we were just both like frozen. It was like we looked at each other, and it was just fucked up, the gravity of the whole thing. And I remember when the buildings came down, and we were at the office watching it happen, and I had like a fucked up smile on my face, like. I was so stunned at it that it was like, not, this isn't really happening. You know, it's like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like a denial smile.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, my parents were going to Israel. They got there obviously fine. They didn't tell them till just before they were landing what had happened, which was probably good. And immediately my parents called. So by evening it was like at least that I lost acquaintances in one of the towers, and maybe both of them actually. I went to school in Boston, and a lot of people from Boston were at Northeastern University were from New York, and a lot of them were working in the towers. Not a lot of them, but there was a few that were working in the towers that I wasn't really close with, but like my parents' friends had kids that I sort of grew up with that died.
Hmm.
That were working for some investment companies. It was just messed up. It was just
Did you live
I
in you lived in New York that time?
no. I'm from Detroit, but I mean there was people that people go everywhere now. Nobody lives.
Hmm.
Nobody people don't live where they're born anymore as much, anyways. So the plane, my parents' plane flew out of Kennedy because it was El Al,
Hmm.
and El Al flies out of Kennedy. So yeah, it was an awful day. It was actually an awful week. I was kind of sick from it. It made me feel sick.
I do remember I was thinking of, because I didn't really like the Bush administration, I'm like, they are going to overreact to this. I do remember that.
Well, they had already sort of planned things, and then this happened.
Yeah.
So it sort of reinforced their the Dick Cheney mentality. Now we have this, now the hook is now the fish took the hook and they're running with it. Now we just got to reel them in. So it maximized on an opportunity, and they took it with the Patriot Act and with the NSA thing is probably a product of that in some respect.
Yeah, some things have been ushered in because of that day. I guess I don't. I mean, given a chance for a couple other people to come in and share, and I guess I didn't want to get too much into those theories
Yeah,
yet. You know,
yeah,
maybe we'll,
I really
yeah.
do.
Uh,
I'm glad you had mentioned that because this whole it there's just it lends to chaos.
yeah. Because I mean, I have my own opinions, and if we get talk about it later or whatever. But just wanted to give opportunities for people to share where they were and the feelings they were going through and stuff like that. I lost a high school buddy. Who was a good friend when we were in high school. We lost touch, but he was a fireman. He was one of the first responders, and he died in the collapse. Um, I had a couple another gentleman who he died a number of years later, but he was part of the cleanup at the time, and He died like a slow death from respiratory problems. Um, so yeah, and at that time I lived. I was sharing earlier. I lived in Brooklyn then. Um, well, actually, I worked in Brooklyn. I was living in Staten Island at the time. But I lived in New York at the time, so I was still there then. So when you're in New York and you live there and you kind of like you go over this bridge every day. It's called the Verrazano Bridge.
Mhm.
It goes from Brooklyn to Staten Island, and you have a view of the skyline. And that the Twin Towers was a fixture there. It was a landmark. And for that to not be there, for me, it was like someone losing their. It was like losing two front teeth, if I can, make that kind of analogy.
Just
Yeah.
thinking that.
Mhm.
Just when you were talking about it missing, not being there, being a fixture, I thought about front teeth. It's exactly
Mhm.
what I thought.
Wow. And that's what it was. It was weird not seeing those buildings there. It was
Must
definitely
have been
strange.
kind of a sick feeling, though.
Yeah. You know.
I did feel violated.
Uh, yeah.
I felt violated because
And
I felt physically altered, like physiologically altered from it. Like there was something, like my stomach felt upset and kind of queasy for a few days.
hmm,
I was angry. I was also angry at the patriotism.
hmm.
I thought it was kind of a disgusting show.
Where I was standing to when I was a pretty fundamental Christian then, and some of the first thoughts was, this is like, the apocalypse. This is kind of the end. This is where the judgment of America, is coming into play. Those kind of thoughts were going into my head as well.
Probably mine too, in the sense of, oh my God, we're actually vulnerable. This actually happened.
Hmm.
It was a sense of you just don't know what's going to happen the next second. It was insecurity for me, I think. For the first time, I felt really insecure, physically.
Yeah, because who knew what was going to happen the days following, and what we're going to be attacked some more, you know?
Well, Chicago is filled with skyscrapers.
Mm.
We have 400-story buildings.
Mm.
I mean, the Sears Tower is still, I think, blocked from the road with embankments.
Hmm. Hey, Cerberus. Yep.
So,
Hey. Sir, do you recall where you were that day?
yes, I was in, was it my June? No, I think I was a sophomore. I was in English class, and we had it on television. I just remember thinking, wow, this is what all the adults talk about. I always remember, like, older people talking about stuff that happened in war.
Yeah. Well, it was worse. It was more. It was different. It's the same and it's different because they had these images in their head, and we had them actually being broadcast in real time.
And I remember them. I remember thinking that too long afterwards. Later in the afternoon, it's like, wow, this is the first thing that's happened in my life that will probably be in a history book.
Where are you from?
Illinois.
Oh, I'm in Chicago.
Right. I'm sorry.
Oh, I love Chicago.
I love Chicago too, actually.
That's
It's a few
great.
times I've been
I
there.
love to go there, spend a few days, and leave.
Oh no, I love living here. It's a great city to live in. It's very clean and manageable, and I'm from Detroit, dude. Chicago's like heaven.
Hmm.
I mean, imagine being born in Gary, Indiana, and moving to Chicago.
So you were in Detroit at the time at the time of 9/11, right? When did?
No, I was in Chicago.
Oh, you lived in Chicago. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. So I'm sure that city was like kind of on a lockdown that day too, huh?
Oh yeah, people walked home from work down. They walked home from the Loop. Everybody just left the city, sort of, the downtown area, because those are big buildings, man. Everybody wanted to get out of the buildings.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
Sears Tower. Now we have the Trump Tower. That's 94 stories or something. The Aon Tower. The Hancock. I mean, there's a lot of tall, in the Loop, there's a lot of tall buildings.
Let's see. That's why I never got. They said a lot of people had anxiety about working in tall buildings afterwards, and I mean that wasn't why they targeted the Twin Towers. I mean they also hit the Pentagon, which is only a few stories tall.
The Twin Towers were iconic, and that it was sort of a sign of American snobbery, I guess.
Yeah, it was the heart of the financial district, you know.
Right, but that's always in the the biggest buildings are in the United States are always in the financial district. Like they are in Chicago too, but Sears Tower.
I always felt like saying that they would come after like tall buildings or iconic buildings was kind of making them out to be stupider than they were. Like they hit targets for a reason.
Well, they already tried to bring down the Twin Towers previously. There was a bomb in the basement.
Yeah, that was in
Years earlier.
'93, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying on the list of targets that they might have, the Sears Tower is probably near the bottom.
I know it's not near the bottom. It's actually considered a pretty prime target.
Well, I mean, by the people in America, but probably not by them.
Why would you?
Who wants to hit the Sears Tower when you go blow up the Federal Reserve or the White House or a bunch of other buildings?
I get that, but what they're trying to, what terrorism is to scare people and provoke anxiety. So if you target big buildings and people are working in them and they're always wondering out of the corner of their eye if they're next, and once it happens, it was ugly what happened. There were people that were jumping out of the windows.
Yeah,
I mean, it was horrible. It was devastating.
That's my whole point. You're making them look like they're stupider than they were. That they weren't just hitting things to scare people.
Yeah, they were. They were hitting things to make a statement.
Well, if that was true, they would be blowing up schools, or they'd be blowing up parks and shit. That way, everyone would think it could happen anywhere.
Right. It can happen anywhere. That was it showed that it could happen anywhere. Over 3,000 people died in about an hour.
Yeah.
So if you attack something else, you're not going to be causing as much destruction and affecting so many families.
Actually, you'd be affecting more by hitting, targets that aren't as, I don't know, as protected. The more everyday targets.
What are you saying? The World Trade Center is the total everyday target.
No, it's not.
Go through what?
Look, if I wanted to cause terror in a country, I'd be blowing up fucking schoolyards and parks.
And you'd be killing people. It would be horrible. And it would be horrible, but it wouldn't be thousands of people.
Yeah, and then I'd fine, and I'd be blowing up, grocery stores. I'd be blowing up shit that everyday people would go to every day, and then they would have to shut down their lives.
Well, that makes no sense, dude. It literally makes no sense.
Well, if that's my goal to make people scared.
You're doing a great job. Very well done. It literally makes no sense. Literally, you're like going. I'm not going to go where there's. I'm not going to go where there's a lot of people.
Well, I mean, it does make some sense, but at the same time, I see your point. You want to make a statement by hitting. You're making a statement by hitting these
concentration of humanity.
Where I guess in a weird sense, I mean the Trade Center, the Twin Towers, there's like 50,000 people that were working in those buildings, when they're all coming to work. It's just fortunate that a lot of them got out, or a lot of them weren't there yet.
Yeah, like, I mean, they hit those targets because they were central to certain operations.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
Where did you read that? Where have you heard that?
A bunch of places since
No
it's
place
happened.
specifically, but you heard it everywhere.
I don't know why you don't understand hitting smaller targets where what people go to every day is more terrifying than hitting a building.
Dude, what do you think they have all these resources? What do you, I have no, what you're saying is so counterintuitive.
You realize it takes less resources to bring a small stick of dynamite to a grocery store than it does to hijack a plane into a building, right?
Yeah, but you don't do the same damage. Dude, you're saying things that don't make sense right now.
Okay, wait. What's your goal? Is it terror or is it damage? Because if
It's
it's
both.
terror, you do what I'm doing.
No, you don't do what you're doing. You kill the most people in the central location where more people are vulnerable at once.
Yeah, that's
Dude, you're not making
that's such a dumb caveman way of committing terror. They're not dumb.
Oh, you're not a caveman, I guess? I don't know. Dude, I'm done with you. Go ahead, talk.
That's great because I mean, if you were afraid to go into tall buildings after 9/11, if I was a terrorist, you'd be afraid to leave your house.
Dude, with you around, I'm afraid to leave my house anyways. Don't worry.
Guys, in 2 months. What kind of
Yeah, I mean, Reuven's got a good suggestion there. That would cause lots of terror and lots of problems. Power grid.
Mm.
Power grid over lots of other things.
Yeah, we heard the threats about those like the over the years after that. Well, then we also had what was it? A few years ago? What was it? Was it 2009? I don't remember what year it was when freaking good part of the Northeast was out of power.
Well, yeah, they did that. All those different news places did that study on what they come up with. You would have to hit 7 different major points, and it would knock out power for the whole entire eastern United States. So something that's well within a terrorist group's power to do.
How do you know?
Well, let's see. They hijacked planes from us and drove them into buildings. I think that's harder than what I'm saying.
You seem to be stating facts, though, of things that are not necessarily factual. I don't understand how you know that they can attack the power grid more easily, or if it's more difficult even. Where does that come from? Where does the state?
You realize a lot of I can't even remember what they're called. These places aren't guarded. Like you drive by them every day.
Really?
Yeah,
You drive by.
I would.
Yeah, the problem with power is you have to transport it across vast distances. You can't guard it all long distance.
So it's also able to be retract very easily. The substate is all electronically managed now.
Yeah, it's not as nice as you think it would be, though.
No,
I mean,
I know it is. I place people. I know. I did work within substations. It is very, very manageable. What happened when everything went out in the East Coast was kind of an anomaly. It happened, and there is vulnerability, but it is not anything as vulnerable as a group of people going and attacking a building, attacking a power center. You can shut it down. You can shut it down and reroute, like instantaneously.
See, I think this was more about embedding something in the consciousness of the country
Exactly.
than just spreading terror and saying attacking a school. Yeah, that would be disastrous if a school was attacked. But
the DC shootings.
But I'm saying it wouldn't be as it wouldn't be as in the consciousness of the whole country or even the world as much as what it did. And these were symbolic targets. It was it was on a day that would be remembered. Here you got 911, 911, the emergency call number. Um, s- so things were very, yeah. I mean, it was very thought out. That's for sure.
The
Um,
whole,
I don't want to get
uh,
into all the other whys and who's right now. Maybe we could talk about it later because that's
wasn't
where
even,
that's where you
wasn't
guys are kind of
yeah,
going a little bit. You know.
John, it wasn't even just the event. It was the fires after the whole day and the next. How long did the fires last? For like a month.
A good month, yeah, yeah.
I mean, to say, yeah.
hmm So yeah, you got the constant images.
We had to
Um,
shut down all air flight in the country. There was no airplanes.
hmm Wonder where everybody else is today.
Watching football, probably.
Oh, there's
There's a
Gretchen.
football. Yeah, there's the Ravens in Pittsburgh,
Oh yes, I heard about that. Yeah.
and with the whole Ray Rice thing.
Hey, Gretchen.
Hey Gretchen, can you come on mic, Gretchen? You're still muted. I don't know.
I also remember feeling anger towards Muslim people, and that was something new for me.
Hmm.
I didn't act on it or anything. I think I just recognized a sense of just being violated. I can't imagine what it was like to live in New York. I mean, it must have just been absolutely devastating.
Yeah. And there was that, yeah, that sense of like we were talking about patriotism. It was, definitely heightened. There was, and it's a shame it got lost over time. But
See, I don't.
there was a sense of coming together in New York. There was a sense of unity. There was a sense of,
But the
uh,
brotherhood is good. The brotherhood is good. The putting things in perspective is good. But
yeah,
the nationalism led to justifying acts that I think are regrettable that we did following.
oh yeah,
So
that I would
it's
agree.
that's what I sort of meant when I said that. That there was this manufactured. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too critical.
No, because yeah, we had the Patriot Act go through, right? NSA was,
And it went through like overnight.
yeah, Homeland Security, another,
And here we had all these people around the president. It just none of them were trustworthy. Was this a bad? That was just a bad. It was a perfect storm, and we're still paying for it.
mm. Gretchen, is your mic working?
And it affected our whole economy. Ugh, I'm getting sick thinking about it.
Mm.
It just changed everything.
See, I'm lucky. I live in a more rural area, and like it didn't change anything where I lived.
Well, maybe it's because you were so young.
No, it's and I mean I wasn't that young.
How old were you?
I would have been like 16.
There's a difference though when I was 35, 36. There's a real big difference. I know people that died. I know and I was telling John and everybody else, I have family friends whose kids died that I wasn't like close with them or anything, but I knew them. You know, I'd see them once or twice a year when I was growing up, but I knew them, and you know what I'm saying? It's different. When it directly, it really impacted almost everybody in some way because of 6 degrees of separation.
Well, I mean, maybe if you got to 6, but I could probably count the number of people that's been to New York around where I live on my hands and toes.
Right.
So I'm just saying that the impact here was so small. The biggest impact was what we watched on television.
Right. Well, that's probably true for everybody, actually. For most people, I agree with you, actually. That was fucked up. Also, it was because of the internet. The news, it was just confusing. It was chaotic. It was devastating. And the images were right there. And then I remember that night scene on, like Telemundo, I think, was showing the people that were jumping out of the buildings, and that just sent me over the edge.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that horror. God, you either burn to death or you jump to your death. I mean, that's. Yeah, I can see that imagery in my head already. I remember seeing those pictures.
And you know what? I'm kind of glad you're doing this because it is bringing it back, and I haven't. I probably have blocked a lot of it out. I remember my brother called me because I didn't even know my parents were on a plane, and my brother called me, and he said that he had already called the airlines, and they were fine. We knew they were fine, but my brother was watching TV, and on ABC News, the second plane flew into the building while they were watching it.
Mm.
My brother and his wife.
Yeah, like I was sharing earlier, when that first plane hit, and I was at work and stuff, so we just thought it was like an accident, a plane hit into the side building, and things like that happened before. But after that second plane hit, then you knew something was up. It was like right.
Well, then it just all and it all just sort of came together.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Hey, Prescott. Yeah.
Hey guys.
How you doing, man?
And there's nothing that I can remember comes close to it.
I haven't talked in a couple of days, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm a little tired.
Mm.
Car trouble today, so
Oh, that sucks.
yeah, water pump's going on it. So anyway, I sent it home with the tow truck. Yeah. So anyway, that's all right. I'll just drive the old beater tomorrow.
I got rid of my vehicles. I had 2 vehicles a long time ago. I got rid of both of them, and I'm really glad.
Yeah, both of mine are Jetta wagons, diesel, and I use them for work. I run about 450 miles a day.
Wow.
So
I know you were telling me you had like 600,000 miles on one of your vehicles, all right?
yeah, I
1 million on another? I think.
almost 660,000 on one, and the other one has 1.8 million on the car.
Hey.
Yeah, and I put them on. So that tells you how many kilometers are on my body.
Wow. Nearly 2.5 million miles.
And that's since 2002.
Since 2002.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is unbelievable. 12 years.
Wow.
Now, can I ask you what you do for work? Even basically what you do for work?
He drives, obviously.
I'm a driver.
He just doesn't talk. He's the transporter, right?
Yeah, that's what I was told to. The way to describe it is, you ever see the transporter? That's me. Only a little less exciting.
The women probably aren't as hot.
Uh, yeah.
Prescott, now I know you were well, you live in Canada, and so I'm sure your perspective was much different than an American perspective when 9/11 happened. Do you recall where you were or what you were thinking?
Yes. Um, at that time, I was doing freight deliveries around Shubenacadie, just about 20 minutes from Truro, and I was making a delivery to the Department of Natural Resources, to their garage, and I couldn't find anybody. And so I heard some noise up in the lunchroom, which was upstairs from the garage where they work on their helicopters and stuff. So I went up, and they were all gathered around the television and watching the news. The first plane had hit probably about 10 or 15 minutes before I got there. And so by that time, it was now on the news, and they were talking about it. And I stayed. I can't remember if I think that I left before the second plane hit, but by that time, because of what was going on, I turned the news on on the radio, and they were covering it up here. Everything was just kind of relayed from American news right over the radio. So while it obviously didn't happen to us, I think that a lot of people in Canada, it resonated quite strongly. I mean, New York is an international city, and certainly there's a lot of Canadians. Anybody that's gone to the U.S. has at least gone to New York City. So it's I mean, it was something that did get a lot of attention, and rightly so. And also because of the air traffic that was diverted that day, there was a lot of planes in Canadian airports, international flights that ended up here in Halifax at the airport. And one of the I'm trying to remember what the cause of it all was, but in Gander, Newfoundland,
Well, shut down all the airspace in the United States that day.
yeah, so they had to push everything in Canada and in Europe, and depending where the flights were, they either got turned around or they ended up here. So, and I know at the 10-year anniversary, that a lot of the people that were in Gander, that had landed in Gander, went back to Gander to remember the day with the people in Gander, because Gander's just a small town, and they literally just took in. I forget how many people ended up at that airport, because I think it's a military airport that was put there. The U.S. used it years ago. I don't think they were doing anything with it, but anyway, the people there just did everything they could to look after everybody, and they were shipping in food and everything, and this was all done by the local people to look after the people that landed there.
Yeah, people definitely did come together and take care of each other differently after from the magnitude of the event. There was a lot of empathy.
Yeah.
I know there was a number of firemen did come from Canada to help out at the cleanup. I
Yeah.
remember, 'cause again I lived in New York then, and I would see fire trucks from all over the country, coming to help out, and yeah, it was something to see.
Yep.
I guess probably the previous really big thing that had happened in the United States was probably Kennedy. That was almost, 40 years?
Yeah, 63.
Yeah. 38 years. Because that was also, imagine Lee Harvey Oswald, the assassin, being shot 2 days later on live television.
Mm.
And that was them. I wasn't born yet for that.
Yeah, me neither. And yeah, I was making that point, when I was opening up, it's for us, our parents, it was Kennedy. They'll always remember where they were,
Right.
and before that you had Pearl Harbor, that generation, it's tragedies like that just are going to be embedded in your memory.
Yeah.
I remember Bobby Kennedy getting killed.
Mm. Was that like 68?
I was a kid. I was a child, but it was a big thing. It was a really big thing. I mean, he was kind of like he was like this guy with so much charisma. And he would like go and speak in public, and people would like walk up to him. They just wanted to touch him. And it was amazing. And then he was killed by Sirhan Sirhan in L.A.
Mm.
And that was I think it was 3 weeks or a month after Martin Luther King.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was only like 2, 3 years old then, so
They were
I
close.
don't remember any of it. But
They were very close together. 68 was such a bad year for the Vietnam War too.
mm.
That was when I think wasn't that when Kent State happened? That would have been better. It was close.
Mm. Oh, sir, what are you doing?
I don't know. It's been good all day until now, as
Uh,
far as I know. Anyway.
well, I was hoping to get a couple more people in here. I think we could take the conversation, a little further if you guys want. I'm gonna do it off air.
I'm kind of curious about if it could happen somewhere else, in another part of the world, literally, if you think it would have gotten even in a big city the same type of attention internationally. What if it happened in Mexico City?
Well, didn't you have an incident in London that happened just what was this?
Yeah, it was a major attack on the transit system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was like 7/7, something like that.
It was. I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably things that we'll never know about that were averted.
Hmm. Well, guys, thanks for sharing. I'm gonna go off air now. I mean, it's like go over an hour. And I'm worried. I've been having audio problems too all day, and I don't want to take risk and cut off. But if we want to bring this conversation up a notch or not, or we just talk about other things, we'll do that off air. And so, thanks for everybody stopping by. We'll put a link. You could put Ruben, if you could put a link in the event page. If they want to join off air, that'd be fine.
And if anybody knows of anything that's being discussed, like within the media about this, I'd like kind of like to hear what other people are saying.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for sharing, everybody. I don't know what else to say. Yeah.
Are you going to shut the room down?
I'm just going to go off air.
Okay.
Room will stay open. Okay?
Yeah, this is where it's going to start getting weird.
Yeah.
Where's Ryan?